Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I'm back with Centerstage Theatre. I have Trista to the left of me. She's the artistic director and an actor in the new play, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I have Andrew adjacent to me. He's also an actor and another actor. Oh, Travis. There we go. And you guys' new play airs on, is airing the right word or showing?
Opens.
Premieres.
Premieres.
Premieres. Ooh, that sounds so fancy.
Premieres on April 1st, so in about a week from today.
Yes.
There we go. So let's just start right there. I don't know much about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So
Yeah.
set the
Well, you
scene for
will.
me.
Okay. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is a musical. I've been affectionately calling it the not safe for work musical because it's a little scandalous. It's for adults. Let's put it that way. But it's not like my 92-year-old grandmother is coming to see this show. But we're saying 16 and up, but parents can use their own discretion, that kind of thing. But it's a musical. It's a comedy. Does not take itself seriously at all. It's the story of two con men on the French Riviera, and there's a gentleman who's been there for a while. He's got a good grift going. He's got his wingman, who Andrew plays his wingman, and they've kind of got this long-running con, and then this young, brash American upstart con artist who is played by Travis shows up and is basically wants to kind of run his own game, and then they end up kind of get butting heads a little bit, and then it turns into will they work together or against each other? They make a bet about who can pull a specific con faster, and their mark is a young woman named Christine Colgate. That's who I play.
Nice.
Who is the American soap queen, and she shows up with all of her wealth and naivete on the French Riviera, and they make a bet who can get 50 grand out of her faster.
Ooh.
And so then hijinks ensue, and they're constantly undercutting each other and getting each other's way. And then, of course, there's a love triangle, and it's great. Of all the songs in the show, there is exactly one, right?
One, and it doesn't remain serious through the entire song.
No, it's insane. So it's definitely... It's a musical for people who are unsure how they feel about musicals is also something I've been saying, because a lot of people, if they don't like musicals, it tends to be, and I don't know what you gentlemen have heard, but people are like, I just hate the fact that they're all like doing something and then they just break into song and it's so serious and emotional, and why are you singing about it, and why are you blah, blah, blah. In this one, it's like they break into song because it's so outrageous that there's nothing else. Like, you can't take it up an outrageous notch without adding music to it now.
Nice.
And that's pretty much what it's about. So if you're the kind of person that's like, oh, musicals, I don't want to deal with all those feelings, this is not all
and
those
what's
feelings.
what's kind of funny is if you did know what Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was, if you said, oh, I know that, what people say to me is, oh, I've seen that movie, it's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
It's based on the movie with Michael Caine and Steve Martin,
But it's not.
but it's not the movie.
No.
It is a musical of the movie,
Nice.
and the music is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
When did the movie come out?
80s?
It was in
Wow.
the 80s, wasn't it?
80s?
Yeah.
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 I will say, if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch it before
not
the
yet.
play.
Mhm.
No, don't.
No, because there's twists and turns
Yeah.
throughout. It is a surprise,
Yeah.
and that's great. But also, when they did come out with the musical, they released a soundtrack, original cast,
Mhm.
and even on the soundtrack, Michael Caine comes in and says, "A moment,
Oh, yes.
please
John
do
Lithgow.
don't
Yeah.
listen to the rest of
Yeah.
the songs,
Yeah. Yeah.
until you've seen the show."
The Broadway musical had John Lithgow, who
I
most
said
people
Michael
know. Yeah,
Caine,
that was
yeah.
all
Sorry
good. It was
about
Michael
that.
Caine
Yeah.
in the movie.
John Lithgow.
John
Sorry,
Lithgow,
John.
Norbert Leo Butz, who will be known to music theater enthusiasts. He did Wicked in the last 5 years on Broadway, and Sherry Renee Scott, who also did last 5 years, Aida, Ursula and the Little Mermaid. And yeah, John Lithgow comes in and goes, if you have not seen the show and da-da-da, stop listening. Because anytime there's like a love triangle and you don't know, like, will they or won't they? And then like there's a whole fun side arc with Andre's character. You don't want to know what happens,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know? So,
no, not at all.
but yeah, it's super fun.
And have you guys all seen the movie then?
I did not on purpose. I knew the show. I've known this show because I'm a musical theater major.
Yeah.
So we literally had classes. I don't know, because Travis, you majored as
Yeah,
well.
I actually saw the show when it came through Seattle on the tour, and I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I watched the movie and fell in love with the movie. So I've been waiting for this show to be produced
Yeah.
for a long time, and then
Yeah.
it finally did. And
I knew
know.
the movie first. I'd seen the movie, loved the movie, saw it a few times because it's one of those movies
Yeah.
like, I love this movie.
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to watch it again. And then when I heard there was a musical, I went, oh, okay, how are they going to do this? And then I saw the musical and I, oh my word, I'm absolutely in love with this musical.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a surprise.
Yeah.
And are you guys both into musicals, or?
Yeah.
I know Trista is.
Yes. Well, actually, it's this will be my first show
Ooh.
with Travis, and he is
Yeah,
already making
yeah.
me laugh in rehearsals. I
Likewise,
have
my
to
friend.
almost leave the room because he is so dang funny.
It's so hard to be on stage with him.
Trista
Oh
and
my
I have
gosh.
done shows together,
Mhm.
and I've been doing musicals since I was young enough to actually be a male lead. And now I am the older gentleman. in
And
most
straight
musicals.
plays. Andrew has
And-
been in some critically acclaimed and award-winning plays in Tacoma, some of the Tacoma theaters as well. So
Yeah.
don't.
I like them both.
Yeah.
I like them both.
Nice. And are you guys both originally from Seattle?
I'm not from Seattle. I'm from Olympia,
Olympia.
actually, was where I'm currently based out of. But
Pacific Northwest.
Pacific
Yeah.
Northwest, born and
PNW.
raised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Washington in Seattle and lived in Seattle for a few years. And then moved down to Tacoma, gosh, now 22 years ago.
And you have a lovely home, and I've
And-
been there for cast parties.
There you go.
A couple times,
We'll have
actually.
to do another one.
Yes.
Except that my family expressly said, no more cast parties, Dad. This is when I say dad, it's my kid. No
Right.
more cast parties. And then my daughter had the chorus line cast party at the house, and I went,
I was gonna
we're
say,
gonna have
your
a Dirty
daughter
Rotten
likes me,
Scandals.
so-
Yeah, she does.
And Travis, you went to PLU.
I did. I went to PLU in
Yeah.
Tacoma, studied theater there and English, and then was like, what do I do with a degree in theater? So
Find
got out of
something
there
else to
and
pay the bills.
kind of started working in radio, actually, and,
Oh, wow.
and did that for a few years, and now I work in communications full time.
Nice.
So this is like the first time I've been on stage in about 5 years.
Ooh.
But
you'd
it's
never
been
know it.
such a blast.
He's
It's so
amazing.
much fun.
Minus 2 years that none of us were on stage.
Yeah,
True.
2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything for everyone, and
Mhm.
yeah, so
We lost a lot of really good people from the field who
Mhm.
were like, "Yeah, I can't stick if it's going to be gone for an indefinite amount of time." You
Yeah.
know how it is because you've worked with artists and
Yeah.
are also an artist yourself. So
well, and this show was going to be produced in 2020.
yeah. So fun
So,
fact:
yeah.
this show, Blake, was the one that we were in the middle of rehearsals when COVID happened. And so this was the show that it was like, yeah, this COVID thing, we should really keep an eye on it. And me being the pessimistic millennial I am, I was the first one of all the board and staff to be like, yeah, guys, this show isn't happening. This is going to be a pandemic. This is going to be, and everyone was like, you spend too much time on the Twitters. And I was like, no, I'm telling you. And it was just really funny because we have a couple of gals who are a little younger. I call them the young millennials. I'm the old millennial who help with our social media and stuff like that. But everyone on the board and the managing director, they were like, we can't think like that. And I was like, well, it's going to be the end of the world, And unfortunately, I was correct in some ways. So we ended up, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, we're going to postpone opening by, a month. And then it was like,
Right.
maybe 2 months. Maybe we'll do this September next season. Then I was like, you know what? Okay. So thankfully, the licensing company let us shelve it almost indefinitely. But when we canceled it, originally we were halfway through rehearsals. Most of our designers had done their designs. So we paid people not having any idea if we were even going to survive the pandemic. So it was really scary. So, we have actors who had done, typically actors you'd get when you work with a theater such as us, that's not like union theater where you're getting a weekly paycheck. You'd get paid opening night and then at the closing. So it's kind of like a half and half. So we paid people half of their, because they did the rehearsals. So we paid actors half of their thing. And then, our set design was mostly done. They would have been tweaking and doing stuff, but set costumes, we paid people according to what they had worked. So we had paid for the rights, which is that's the biggest expense. And then we paid everybody involved for a show that we knew wasn't going to happen, which was very scary. But we're super, Center Stage is very, if we're not taking care of our people, then why do we exist is kind of our deal.
And now it is happening.
And now it is happening.
And what's very funny about that, I was just talking to Travis earlier about the fact that I said, I remember when the show was coming up, I was going to audition for it. And then I remember not being able to audition for it. And you just reminded me why. I was in Murder on the Nile.
Yeah.
And that got
canceled
right in the middle of Tech Week as well. When you have friends who are actors.
Is that a play also? Murder on the
Yeah,
Nile?
that's an Agatha Christie when it was at Lakewood Playhouse. And so when you have a lot of friends who are actors, everyone's got their story, it seems.
Right. Everyone was in the middle of something.
Opening weekend. I just mentioned a chorus line. I actually went and saw that again just recently. It was really good. And I got to see the first weekend of that show 2 years ago. They did one weekend and then they
canceled.
shut down.
Yeah.
Wow.
So everyone was in a different
And
place.
Gentleman's Guide.
Yep, Gentleman's Guide as well, which just opened.
So everyone.
Everyone.
Got it.
So all that to say, so now, of course, we're relaunching everything. So now we're paying everybody all over again. So this show is costing twice as much. So that's a little, so we're like, please, everyone come back to theater and buy many alcoholic beverages, which I'm working on right now, what our specialty beverage is going to be. I've been trying to.
Are you asking for help?
Maybe after we can talk offline.
Okay, that sounds good.
The hardest thing is I can't have too many ingredients because my bartenders will get mad at me, and I have a license to serve, but I'm in the show, so I can't help them.
You're not going to have the great big stuff,
I know,
which
right?
just has a
Just
shot of everything in it.
That's great big stuff. Yeah, out of a garbage can. They're just going to
like
ladle
in
it.
college. But the fun thing is, like Andrew, so it's been almost exactly while we were in the middle of rehearsals, my Facebook did the 2 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And it was a picture of rehearsals. And we kept the majority of the cast and design team through the 2 years, which is really amazing, but not everybody. And fun fact, both of these gentlemen were not in the original production. Travis, because he didn't know we existed and we didn't know he existed. Andrew, because he was in another show. And then the gentleman who plays Lawrence, who's the original con artist and the French Riviera, he also wasn't available. And we had different people, wonderful people, but COVID just upended so many people's lives. One of them moved to like Reno. One of them got a job with an equity theater in Seattle, which is awesome for him. And so it turned into one of those things where it was like, well, then Andrew was in a show and I was talking about it backstage and he's like, well, that's like a bucket list role and I'm not doing anything now. And I was like, well, you should come audition. And then Travis's friend was in The Importance of Being Earnest with us. And I was like, hey, do you want to audition? And his friend, Paul Richter, was like, yeah, I can't sing to save my life, but I do have this friend who this is a dream role for him. So it's just kind of cool how the theater community coalesced to be like, we'll help you find these people. And then the gentleman who's playing Lawrence as well, I texted him and I was like, I know this is a long shot. And he was like, no, I'm in. Like,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's always a little scary when you have a team that comes together really well and then you have to replace key people. But about a week into rehearsals, the director came up to me and she said, I loved everybody else who was in the roles. This is nothing, but I realized today that not once in this whole week have I thought, oh, and I wish so-and-so was here.
Wow.
At all,
awesome.
which is that's the testament to how well these gentlemen and Bruce, who's the other gentleman, are doing, is that at no point have I been like, oh, I liked the way so-and-so did it ever. And this is truly, like, I feel like we ended up with the best of all possible worlds. With a really good cast and everyone gets along really well, which, usually casting.
Group.
But yeah, I
I'm
would just
very
hang out with all
excited.
these people.
So I've probably done 60 productions or so over the last few decades. I am so excited for this show. It's not funny.
I am too.
And when Trista told me who had been cast, I was so excited because I know these people.
Yeah.
They're going to crush it. They're going to be so good.
Yeah. Deanna, who she's the other, so there's like 5 leads. So there's the 3 of us, Bruce and then Deanna. She's one of those like powerhouse. She does everything. Like she's a director. She directed our, not the Christmas show you saw, the one that was supposed to be the Christmas before that we ended up doing Christmas in July because COVID. She's an incredible director. She just coached kids in, she's a private coach for like acting for kids and stuff like that, teenagers and things. And she has a group of students and then she got hired by Seattle Rep Theater to coach a group of kids for the nationals for a monologue competition, and 2 of her Tacoma students won the state competition, and they're going to nationals in New York City in May, which is a huge deal.
Wow.
Like all these kids from Seattle,
thank
Tacoma,
goodness
and they
it's
were
not
like,
April.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, it's Tacoma kids. Like that's a big deal because
Yeah.
Tacoma often gets overlooked in the art scene. It's like, oh, Seattle, and it's like, well. In Seattle, it now costs $2,000 to rent a closet to live in. So a lot of people are moving to Tacoma. So it's, there's really good art happening down there as well. And then she's also just a killer comedic actress.
She's
and
so funny.
Oh my gosh,
I
is she
crack
funny.
up every time. And watching these two work together
Yeah.
too.
Well, that's
Andrew
the
and Deanna,
thing
I
too.
mean,
When you're working with someone who makes the scene so easy,
Right.
And she
And that's
does.
her. Yeah. And that's what Andrew and I were joking the other night about having to find our spot backstage because normally when you're in a show, if you're not on stage, you're in the dressing room, you're chilling, you're drinking your tea or whatever. But every once in a while you're in a show that it is so much fun to watch that you have to find like a spot backstage where you can't be seen, but you can see everything on stage. And I've only done a handful of shows where I'm like, and this is one of those shows where when I'm not on stage, I'm going to be backstage with my little tea mug, just watching everything that I'm not in because I don't want to miss any of it because it's so fun.
And has COVID calmed down with doing plays now, or do you guys still all have to wear masks? Or how's that going?
Yeah, so we masked in rehearsals up until a couple days ago, and now if you're not on stage, we wear our masks just to keep each other extra safe. But when we're on stage, we don't, and we're the leads, we're all up in each other's business in this show. So
seriously,
yeah.
no personal space whatsoever.
None at all.
Yeah.
I was like, hi, Travis, nice to meet
Yeah.
you.
Hello.
And even our ensemble members, there's lots of couples dancing. There's two people in the ensemble that do these like killer dance breaks in the show. Like one of the young men in the ensemble was a competitive ballroom dancer for like 6 years.
Wow.
And so he and this other gal do all these. So you're like up in each
That
other's
explains
business.
a lot to me.
Yeah,
I see. I did
Jared's
not
a
know that. I
competitive
was just
baller.
watching their
Yeah.
video
Oh
and went, "Oh,
Gosh,
really?"
he's so good. So basically with mask restrictions being gone, it's a little nerve-wracking because now it's like, now when we're in the cereal aisle at Fred Meyer, everybody and their brother around us. So the understanding is basically, as a cast, we are the bubble. We protect each other. So even though I don't have to wear a mask at Target now and I'm vaxxed and boosted and my whole family's vaxxed, blah, 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 I do because I am trying to take that extra precaution to keep Travis safe and Andrew safe. And so so that's basically, and then the people who aren't on stage, like the director and stage manager, they're typically staying masked. And then we are keeping our vaccine and mask requirements for our audience members.
Mm-hmm.
Because the actors can't be masked. And it's really, we don't feel like it's asking too much. I mean, you can remove your mask to drink your wine. You can, like we're not. And when we put our vaccine mandate in place, now, of course, numbers have been fluctuating a lot because of COVID. Some people already come back, some aren't, whatever. But for our Christmas show, you saw it, so it's it's fun for grown-ups but also really fun for kids, but we only sold like a third the kids tickets that we normally would, so that showed us that people were still a little nervous about bringing their kids out pre-vaccine. But adults came, we did just fine. And I would say 98% of our audience members were vaccinated versus a very, very small handful who came with negative COVID tests instead.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging. But it's hard to know because now that restrictions are being dropped all different places, all the Tacoma theaters, all the South Sound, we're not Tacoma or Federal Way, but all the South Sound theaters from Federal Way to Olympia are keeping their COVID requirements through the end of this season, at the very least, to keep performers safe, which I think is great.
The way I've heard it is theater was the first to have to close.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last to be able to open.
Right.
So we're just extra cautious because of that.
Yeah. It is interesting, though. I don't expect a lot of backlash, but we definitely have already had some people kind of make it known that, if you're going to have restrictions, then I'm not going to buy a ticket kind of thing. And it's like, okay, you just, I'll be surprised if it's more than a dozen people out of hundreds and hundreds, but it's one of those things where it's like, we're not going to require you to wear a mask until like 2030. Like this isn't, but through the end of this season, we have actors who are immunocompromised. We have actors with health histories. We have, if it's between, Joe Schmo and his partner, coming to see the show or keeping Travis and Andrew safe, there's no contest to me. I mean, there's no contest. And so if that's going to upset you as an audience member, then sorry about it, but I don't think it's going to be a big problem. And I'm hoping that the people who are supportive of restrictions remaining in place show up and show their support for that. So yeah, we'll see. And with this one being one that we're saying, this is a great night out with friends. This is a great date night. This isn't one where you're going to bring your 11-year-old to the show, unless you're me. Then my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old are coming because I'm either a great or a terrible mother, depending on how you look at it. So because it's aimed at adults, it'll be interesting to see. This is a great one. My sister works for the Naval Shipyard in Bremerton and has a bunch of friends that they go out to happy hour and stuff, and they're all going to come see the show. This is that show. So it'll be interesting to see.
I told my sisters I'm going to make sure I get them tickets because I want them to see it. Yeah. And I was very happy that they were going to be coming to see it in the second weekend. Yeah. And I said, so that you can come and see it again because you're going to like it that much.
Yeah. This show doesn't get done very often. So that's part of why people are really excited, because it's known, but it's not oversaturated. And I don't think I've seen any theater in the Pacific Northwest do it since I moved here 13 years ago.
And it's possible I missed it. Hasn't been produced.
It actually was on Theater in the Square, and I don't remember. It probably was longer than what you're saying, but I just remember it being there at one point in time.
Yeah, I've been here for 13, 14 years, so it would have had to been. Yeah, it really doesn't get done. And
why is that, by the way?
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's so good. I don't know why.
Too many Tony Awards.
Too many Tony Awards. Yeah. And nobody can get John Lithgow to come and do their show. Yeah. I suspect part of it is because some places that do musicals like to stick to only super squeaky cleanly musicals so you can sell them to the whole family.
Got it.
But also, I think this show requires 2 male leads who you have to be able to buy that they're about 20 years between the two of them, which means you can't get away with 2 younger guys. So Bruce, who's not here, you have to have a guy that if they're standing next to Travis and I said, this guy could be Travis's dad, he's not his dad in the show, but that age gap, it has to be believable. Mm-hmm. And then his wingman, Andre, has to be of an age with him. And so to ask a theater that isn't a huge equity theater to find 3 men, 2 over the age of 40, who can sing and act and move, and Bruce's character does accents.
Multiple dialects.
That's if it were reversed and it was 3 women and 1 man, I bet you more theaters would do this show because it's very intimidating. Even when I pitched the show, I was like, okay.
So is this a risk kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime, a lot of times theaters, there are really good shows that don't get done because you're worried that you can't get the people for it. It's always a little bit of a leap of faith, right? And so there are a couple of shows that we're doing this season that were like that for me. Not to get too sidetracked, but the next show after this required an all Asian cast with the exception of 2 actors. And I was like, all right, well, I want to do this show, so I guess we're doing it. And then you're like, dear God, please let people show up for auditions that we can cast for the show. And so this one, and what's doubly amazing to me is, like I said, I had cast these 3 incredibly difficult to cast roles, lost them all during the 2 years of COVID, and then got recast with incredible people, which is just whoa. But yeah, that's my guess. And maybe a little bit in the theater community, there's a lot of name recognition for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but musicals are really expensive. Mm-hmm. And so they cost more. The rights cost more. You're paying musicians, you're paying music director, you're paying a choreographer, blah, 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 blah. The sets are usually bigger, yada, yada, yada. And so a lot of times when a theater is going to take the risk of spending money on a musical, they want to do Fiddler on the Roof or something that everyone knows and but
The Sound of Music.
Right.
Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Which I get, but I'm but haven't y'all seen that one?
Yeah.
17 times? Don't you want to go see?
Well, and this one's so much better.
I know.
It's so funny and just it's so over the top and so the characters are all scoundrels.
Yeah.
They're not the squeaky clean,
right.
you want to root for them, but
Right.
it's, they're
Right.
definitely
You're-
doing some questionable
Your two
things.
leading men, you're like, I like them, like, despite
But
the
should
fact
I
that-
like
Why?
them?
Yeah. Why do I like
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Travis, I'm excited to learn more about your background in radio. So
Yeah, so I the first show, theater production I was in out of college was directed by Kent Phillips, who was on Star 101.5 for
Okay.
many, many years and is one of the coolest human beings on the planet. He's awesome. But I was working with him. I was like, what do I do with a theater degree? And he was like, well, you should go to radio. So I tried that for a little bit, got a couple part-time jobs, kind of helping in the studio where I could and like going out on the street team and doing events and everything. And that kind of led to a full-time job in promotions and liked that for a while and still did theater on the side. And then now I work full-time in communications and do theater when I can. But
Tell them
Yeah.
about your job because it's super cool.
yeah, so I'm a communications specialist for public school employees of Washington. So I work with all the classified staff throughout the state.
and what's classified stuff?
So they're anybody who's not a teacher. So it's like
Okay.
your bus drivers, custodians, paraeducators who are working with special needs kids, kind of the
For
folks
the
who
entire state of Washington.
yeah, for the entire state. So they're incredible folks. They keep our schools running in colleges and universities as well. And I help them kind of bring out their stories to talk about pro-public education issues like during the legislative session. I've gone to D.C. a couple times with our group and just work with incredible people. So I really love what I do, and I love the team I'm on, and they're all very excited to come see the show too. So
awesome.
I think they'll see a different side.
I started out in promotions too.
Oh, right
So
on.
it's
Very
cool
cool.
that you
There
have
you
that.
What where would you do promotions?
I was at Movin' 92.5.
Moving. That was Warm's sister station.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we were right down the hall then.
That's awesome. So,
Super
Yeah.
funny.
what was like your first musical or play you were in?
First play I was in was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers when I was 8 years
gosh.
old. I played
Oh, my
the
goodness.
shopkeeper. My parents knew I had a lot of energy, so they put me in a summer theater program. They're like, go do musicals, act. And I just fell in love with it. So every year I would do a couple different shows. That's actually where I met Bruce.
Mhm.
It was at Capitol Playhouse in Olympia, Washington. And then, yeah, just kind of got the theater bug and kept doing it and studied it in college and did a lot of productions here in Seattle right after graduation, and then kind of started doing other things for my career, and but just still always go back when I can.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome.
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
What about you, Andrew? What was your first play or musical?
It was called Mountain Music. It was the 4th grade. I was singing Bill, but that was a long time ago. No, and then of course, career-wise, I actually worked in television
Oh,
while I
wow.
was in school. I
Oh.
was at Cairo TV and started out in the news as a floor director and working the Chiron, and then ended up with PM Magazine, which became Evening Magazine when it moved to 5. And but I was doing that working my way through college. And once I graduated and I started to become a businessman, so I opened up my own video production company. Then I went into computer software development and ended up at Microsoft for 5 years, from 89 to 94, and then started my own company up in Pioneer Square, which did very well, spun off a couple other companies, ended up going public. That was great. But during all this time, my only outlets were Microsoft let me do these things called tipster things for a show called Inside Line, which was great. But when you got a company, you're 7/24.
Mm.
You wake up at 3 in
Mhm.
the morning and you
Mhm.
go, do I have enough money to pay the 200 employees? Because they got to feed their kids. And then I went to work for the University of Washington in Tacoma. And when I did that, I had a little more free time at night because it was now a more flexible job. And I was asked, because my daughter was cast in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and they needed a Jacob. Being older. This was so long ago. Jacob and his sons, I think 7 of my sons may have been older than me at the
Oh my
time.
gosh.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's
But my
amazing.
kids were cast, so I thought if I got to take them to rehearsal, that's it.
Absolutely.
And then that was the bug. And I started doing
Mm.
4 to 5 shows a year plus murder
Gosh.
mysteries
Yeah.
for the last 21 years, something like that. It's just crazy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, then My Fair Lady, one of them that you put on when you want people to come see it.
Uh-huh.
I've been Alfie Doolittle twice. Um, Little Shop of Horrors, that's not necessarily a family musical.
No, it is not.
But still fun. I've been Mushnik twice. But my favorite thing on that one, there's a movie of Little Shop that Disney put out, and then there's the stage play, and the stage play is very different.
Yes.
So I'd love to go and peek through the curtain just at the point when people start dying off.
Yeah.
The ending is very different.
The ending is very dark.
All the moms are like all of a sudden going, what did I take my kids to see?
That was the
Everyone
movie that
dies.
test audiences hated the original ending, and they went back and reshot it.
Yeah.
Because people hated it so much.
The Little Shop of Horrors, the play literally ends with everyone dies. And so they did it with
is that a spoiler, though?
Not really.
I mean,
it's been out since
it's been out a while.
Exactly. If you saw the original movie, then everyone dies.
Yeah. Well, and in the movie with Help Me Please.
Rick Moranis.
Thank you, Rick Moranis. They did the same ending, and they showed it to test audiences, and everyone in the movie theater was like, no, thank you. Everyone dying. So they were like, reshoot. The people we like live. And so the movie ends totally different.
But anyway, so then, other shows like that. So I've been doing a lot of them. But the first show that I did with Trista was Spamalot. And I knew all these people in theater, and then she was cast as the Lady of the Lake, which is one of the hardest roles I can imagine anyone doing in musical theater pulling it off.
It's pretty hard.
And she was so good.
Oh, gosh, I'll pay you later.
No, it was just one of those. And by the way, guess what? Bruce also was in that. He was Lancelot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've been doing a lot of it theater. And I still work at the University of Washington in Tacoma at the School of Engineering and Technology, where I teach, and then at night,
that's so
go out and do
your
stuff.
Theater.
Wait, so you went to school for engineering also, or how did you?
I got the most important degree you can get at a university, a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. That's a moneymaker right there.
Yep.
But I also call that one of my favorite degrees I've ever gotten because it really has been helpful through my entire life.
Yeah.
It's been a great
Use
degree.
it for everything, man.
I did go back to get a degree in computing and information systems, and that started me doing some programming for Health Plus, and then I moved into some other things. But right now, the courses that I teach are an intersection between technology and business. So like starting next week, managing technical teams is what I'll be teaching, and just finished up a quarter of entrepreneurship and technology. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I heard there's like a stigma between like UW and UW Tacoma. Do you think there is one?
Well, what's really kind of funny about that in terms of any kind of a stigma, I think that one of the things that comes up is I think there's a stigma between Seattle and Tacoma. And there used to be a much bigger one. It's changed dramatically over the last decade to a point where the people 15, 20 years ago would say, why are you living in Tacoma? Or saying, I'm thinking about moving to Tacoma.
100%.
So there's a little bit of a difference going on there. In terms of the university, one of the great things that happened there was working with, I was on the board of directors for the WTIA and worked with Ed Lazowska, who was Bill and Melinda Gates chair at the UW Seattle's engineering program. And we're looking at a place that we could start building more engineering degrees. And the UW Tacoma had a group of great people who managed to get that sort of sited as where they would build what at the time was called the Institute of Technology. There were currently about 60 students getting a computer software and systems degree because it was a computer science degree, but they had to name it differently, Stigma. And since then, we are now the School of Engineering and Technology, where we have over 1,000 students in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, and computer engineering and information technology. We have companies that have spun out of there that are worth millions. So is there a stigma? I don't think so anymore.
Hell yeah.
Now, mind you, I will say there's two things I will say, and then I'll finish on that question. One of them is the UW Seattle's computer science program is top 5, top 10 in the world.
Legendary.
I mean, they're just great.
Yeah.
They're great. So there is that. I will also say that some of our graduate students went with our faculty to a machine learning competition at MIT and took first place, beating out the MIT team and Alibaba's research team as well.
Wow.
So no slouches. There's no slouches going on down there either.
Yeah.
And has COVID affected you personally with being a teacher? Or I guess
okay, this is not what this podcast is about. But when they shut down all of the theaters and all of the other programs, I had just finished working on a 5-year strategic plan for the recruitment and retention of the technology industry in the South Sound. And I was on my 19th year of being the chair of the South Sound Technology Conference. I brought back the founding chancellor of the university. I had 3 congressmen there and a group of women research scientists, and they shut down the university the day of the conference.
Oh,
So of the like
heartbreaking.
300 people who would have been there in the hall, there were maybe 75 left.
Oh, no.
Because none of the students could come to campus because COVID it just had shut
Wow.
down. So yes, it did affect us. I'm not a big fan of Zoom. I do want to rewrite the Brian Wilson song Beach Boys in my room to that tune and be on my Zoom because it's not. I'm not a fan. But it helped.
Yeah.
It helped. And
It was
it got
a
us through
necessary
it.
tool.
It was a necessary tool, and it got it through it. I had seniors in my class last quarter, seniors, who were 2-year transfers, first time they were on campus.
Wow.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
That's a crazy story
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of ties back like what you were saying about Tacoma. I think there is an across the board shift of, because I moved here 14 years ago, and when I moved here, it was like Seattle and Tacoma, and I totally get it. But part of it is that there's been so much growth in Seattle across the board, especially artistically. Like when I moved here, Seattle was, you could make an argument Seattle was in the top dozen cities for live theater in the country. And by the time I'd been here for 7 or 8 years, it was like, okay, we've got New York, obviously. Southern California is kind of more spread out, but there's a lot there. Chicago and Seattle. I mean, Seattle had moved up to like the top 4
Easily,
or 5
yeah.
easily for arts, which is amazing. And then, of course, if that affects everything. That's
Right.
and you're very familiar with the music scene and all that kind of stuff. And so you can't contain that much growth in just the city of Seattle. So it just kind of starts this sprawl, and people start moving places. And then, if you look at a map, just because of industry and airports and all that kind of stuff, there aren't many options. If you want to stay on the I-5, there aren't many options between Seattle and Tacoma to live if you want to stay off going 167 into the middle. And now you're stuck in traffic for the rest of your life. So there's aren't. So it's kind of like, in order to live anywhere else, you have to start kind of looking. Now you're looking in Federal Way. Now you're looking into Tacoma, and so that, and then rent prices going up and all that kind of stuff. People are starting to look for alternatives, and very much like Andrew said, when I first moved here, younger people who were graduating from college and looking to build their careers in any field wanted to live in Seattle. It was like, the closer to Cap Hill, the better. I'm going to live in Seattle. And of course that still happens. But I remember very distinctly right around when I got married, so about 2 years after getting here, all of a sudden it was like people were looking at like the Puyallup-ish area kind of and then for a little while, Puyallup was like a cool place to live, which no shade to Puyallup, but I was like, guys, you can't, I'm sorry, stop trying to make
No
it cool.
shade.
It's never going to
It's
happen.
not going to happen.
They do have a really great Greek restaurant though. But
That's it.
that's all they have. I lived there for a little while too. We all do our time in Puyallup. It's fine. And now, a few years now down the road, now people who come here, they look in Tacoma first for a place. I mean, we just bought our first house and it's in Tacoma, and
Congrats.
thank you. It's very exciting. I'm like, oh my gosh, we did it. Mama, we made it. But, if you had told me when I moved here 14 years ago, your first house will be in Tacoma, I'd have been like, Tacoma? Who lives in Tacoma? So it's interesting. And I think it's great because what it does is it opens up the field. It opens up, there's diversity in the South Sound that it is huge and different from in Seattle. The groups that you see in Seattle and in Tacoma differ. The demographic makeup is different. And so it's just expanding, because it's not like Tacoma is getting forward momentum in the arts and sciences and Seattle's not. Seattle's always going to be that. It's always going to be a metropolitan area. It's always going to be known for innovation. It's always. And I love that it's now starting to embrace, to the Tacoma area. And Centerstage is kind of a microcosm of that. It was the first show I did at Centerstage. I was the only person from Federal Way in the cast out of 8 of us, and everyone else was from Seattle. And I remember asking the director of the show about, where people were from, and he was like, "Oh, there's no talent in the South Sound. There's no, you're one of a small handful of actors from Federal Way I've ever even hired. I'm so glad you're here, blah, blah, blah. But all the talent is in Seattle." And I remember thinking like, okay, that sounds kind of weird, but all right. I mean, I was an actor. I was new here. What did I know? And then when I became artistic director, at that point, I had worked now in the South Sound in a couple of shows, and I was like, I think there's more talent down here. And now Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is what, like 75% South Sound talent.
Yeah.
And we do have
Wow.
people from all the way up in Everett and people who live in Seattle. But, the ratios, and usually our shows are about 50-50. This one just happens to be. But it's interesting to see theater as a microcosm of the explosion of growth that the Pacific Northwest is seeing. And I think it's great. I want to see more bridges built between Seattle and Tacoma. Because
And there's
they can
actually
only
great
help.
theater all the way down to Olympia as well.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Olympia
Harlequin
is-
Theater.
There's great stuff, and for the number of different shows that are there, it's interesting to see. There'll be a handful now that'll either come up or come down into the Tacoma area. Very, very strong theater community with more and more production companies coming up
Popping
as well.
up.
Tall and Small, Duke's Bay,
Yep.
and we've got Lakewood and Tacoma Musical Playhouse and Tacoma Little Theater, and
But even in this show, we have actors from Olympia all the way up to Everett. That's a huge.
Everett.
It's a big span.
Yeah. We have a married couple that are both from Everett, which is kind of fun. We don't get married couples in shows very often, but this
I
one
didn't
just
know they were
happened
from
to work
Everett.
out. Yeah, they come all the way from
Wow.
Everett. Yeah.
Wow.
That is far.
Yeah.
Do original
Dang.
casts usually come to Seattle, like Hamilton or anything like that, or like when
So
plays eventually come to Seattle? what
So
happens?
generally what'll happen is the original cast will be on Broadway, and then by the time you get to the national tour, most of the original cast is usually gone. So you'll have like the national tour cast will be separate from the Broadway cast. Now, every once in a while, as a promotional bump, someone from the original cast will join a tour if they want to drum up money. Or, for instance, with Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda joined the cast of the tour that went down to Puerto Rico for a little while to drum up support, and that's where his parents are from and everything like that. And so he wanted to, and I want to say this was post-hurricane too, and so they were trying to kind of get some money flowing there. So every once in a while, something like that will happen, or, an actor, a big name actor will headline a national tour. But generally, national tours are separate from the Broadway cast. Generally, you can expect a Broadway originally cast to stick around, if it's a very successful show, of course, because some shows open and close on Broadway in weeks, but generally between 6 and 12 months. And usually the biggest names will leave first because they have other projects to do.
Yeah.
But national tour casts are usually incredible. I mean,
But and with the folks that are on national tour, a lot of our actor friends,
yeah,
you can spot someone on stage and you'll go, they could do a national tour.
yeah,
And we have a number of actors from the area who've then gone up to Fifth Avenue
Yep.
for a number of different shows, and then have gone on national tours with those shows. And then, of course, Fifth Avenue has launched a few
Broadway
shows
shows.
and Broadway
Yeah.
shows here. And so the people who are the original cast there live in the area.
yeah. Yeah, the business is weird. So generally what will happen is before a show goes to Broadway, so first of all, it'll be in development for a million years, and some get caught in development hell, just like a TV show or movie, right?
Yeah.
But it'll be in development, it'll be workshopped, blah, blah, blah. When it's ready to be launched as a full-scale production, typically they will choose a theater that's an equity, a union theater somewhere in the
Can I
country.
break that down to what is a equity?
Sure.
theater?
Yeah. So Actors Equity is the actors union. So just like any other labor union, Actors Equity is a little tricky because as an actor, you have jobs in, an 8-week contract or a 3-month contract, and then you're done. So Actors Equity gets a little tricky because nobody's paying you when you're not in a show. It's not like you're magically getting a paycheck. So it can be a little weird because, they require a certain number of weeks, you to work a certain number of weeks a year to get your health insurance and all that. That being said, actors need a union because they need to be protected. But there are separate unions, like the directors union is not the same as the actors union, which is good because you want different representation for them, because if there's going to be a conflict, it will probably be between directors asking things of actors that actors are like, we've been here for 15 hours, we want a break. So the stage manager, who is kind of in charge of all the logistics for a show, is in the same unions called Actors Equity with the actors. Directors and designers are in a separate one. Getting into the union the requirements change a lot. Back in my day, they were a little harder. It was a little harder to get in than it is now. You have to work a certain number of weeks in an equity theater within a certain number of years, basically. So when I graduated college, it was 50. You had to work 52 weeks or 50 weeks within 5 years. And until then, you were a candidate for the union. Now it's not as difficult. It's not the same number of weeks. The trick is a theater that's a union theater. So in Seattle, we've got like the well-known ones like Fifth Ave, Village Theater, Act Theater, Seattle Rep. And there are a few others. If they're doing a show, they're required by the union to hire a certain percentage of union performers, and they're only allowed a few roles that aren't union. So you've got all these non-union people vying for these couple of roles so that they can potentially get into the union. So it gets kind of crazy. But the flip side of that is once you're union, you cannot work anywhere that's non-union. So if Travis were to go get his union card, he couldn't work for us at Centerstage anymore because the union will require him to make a certain amount. We could do a special contract with the union.
I was going to say, can you do a special contract?
But it costs us a bajillion dollars. So it's kind of, it's a little insider baseball, but it's a union theater is going to be one where you're going to get a weekly paycheck and they're going to pay into your pension and benefits and blah, blah, blah. But it's still, when your contract is over, you're still back at, your bartending gig or your whatever, unless you're one of the very few that can go from contract to contract. And in Seattle, that's very tough to do. So there are a lot of people who opt to not go union because they just want to work and they don't want to have to worry about it.
Or you get on a national tour.
Or you get on a national tour. So the union theaters will be the theaters that if you're developing a show, Blake develops like the NAST, the musical, and wants to go to Broadway. There are theaters across the country that are union theaters that are known for launching these shows onto Broadway, and Fifth Ave is actually one of them. So it's kind of one of Seattle art scene's claim to fames. And then back in the day, Intiman was as well. It's a completely different setup now than it was. But there was a show called Light in the Piazza that won a bunch of Tony Awards. Adam Gettle, that one launched at Intiman. Aladdin, the musical, had a run here at the Fifth Ave while it was getting fixed up before it launched on Broadway with James Monroe Englehart, who was the genie here, then went to Broadway as the genie and then went on to do Hamilton. He replaced Daveed Diggs in Hamilton. Tony Award winner Daveed Diggs.
Next to normal.
Next to normal. And I met him, no big deal, but I met him when he came to do Aladdin because a friend of mine from university was in the show, and so we got to meet backstage. And I met James Monroe Englehart. No big deal. My friend, his name is he lives at his name is Daniel Watts. Look him up. He's very amazing and very handsome and very talented. And he drove me to DC once in college because I was a freshman with no friends, and he was a very kind junior, and I had no one to ride to DC with for an audition, and I went with him, and now he's famous. Yes. So that's it. That's my. Anyway, and Daniel Watts was also in Hamilton. No big deal. You would take your musical and you would premiere it somewhere like Fifth Ave, and that's where you would do your test audiences, and they would be able to tweak it, but it's getting its full production. They'll be able to tweak it and mess with it, and then once it's successful, if your producers, your backers, your money people are still sticking with it, then you go to Broadway. So every once in a while, they'll keep somebody from the Seattle Fifth Ave cast or something, and go to Broadway. But a lot of times the people in that Fifth Ave Seattle cast came from New York to begin with. So it's kind of hard to know. It gets a little hinky. And then also a lot of times, because the arts business can be so cutthroat, Travis may have the lead in the show while it's at Fifth Ave in NAST the podcast, the musical. Travis may have the lead in it, and he's great. And then your producers come to you and they go, Blake, Travis he's so good, and the audiences at the Fifth really love him, but we need to sell out this show, and I just don't. So I just really think
Hugh Jackman. Sorry, buddy.
Well, darn.
Sorry,
I know.
buddy.
You have to be replaced by somebody.
I know, right?
That's
I know.
Not too shabby.
I mean, I was going to say Shia LaBeouf and really try to insult you, but I just. Shade. Anyway, So they'll come to you and they'll go, Hugh Jackman is going to sell tickets, and you, your producers are saying that to you, and you're gonna have to say, yeah, you're right, and then Travis has to be replaced by Hugh Jackman, and that's so it can get kind of crazy. It's a weird little business. Yeah, it's the biz, and then also you could have a successful run at the Fifth Ave, and your producers might say, the Pacific Northwest loves NAST, the podcast, the musical, but we just don't think New York's going to get it. Sorry, bud. We're just not going to. And then that's it. The
Trista,
end.
do you know Angry Housewives? Do you know the musical?
I do.
Yeah, so that was a Seattle original.
Yeah, it was at Arts West.
Yeah, it was, and then it made it to the Fifth Avenue and played at Fifth Avenue. That's one of those got to Broadway and they're like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Isn't that so interesting? And that one started at Arts West, which was non-union at the time, which is right in West Seattle on California Avenue, then went to Fifth Ave. And that one, they had a stellar cast at Arts West that got really good critical acclaim, but that cast did not get to do it at Fifth Ave. They replaced them with more known Seattle names. And then when it got to New York, it was, a young woman who graduated from my alma mater was in the Arts West one. Oh. Elon University, producing stars. And then also me.
Also me.
So, yeah. So
well,
there's
this show, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, is one of those exceptions that you mentioned with after it went to Broadway, Norbert Leo Butz won the Tony Award, but then he toured with the first national tour.
Which is very unusual.
That's very unusual, but that's when I got to see him in Seattle, went to that tour and just was like,
so you saw like
mind
the
blown.
Man.
I saw the man.
And now you're playing that role.
And now I'm playing literally my dream role.
God.
Like I have to say, like I in my back pocket was hoping.
Have you invited
someday
him to come and see you? Have you reached out to him?
He won't answer my texts.
Somebody contact his agent. I love that.
No, so when Paul
Playing
texted me, I was like, oh man. I was like, I gotta throw my hat in the ring for this.
Yes,
This is
I'm so
you gotta
happy
make this
you
work.
did.
Had
somehow.
you talked about it before, or was this just like out of the dark? Like, did people know you liked this play a lot?
He and I
He
watched
must have known,
the movie in college all the time, and like we were like, just so he knew. So then when he had the opportunity come up, I was like, okay, I need to go do a video audition like tonight.
Because
like,
he even said to me like, this is his dream role, and I thought that's weird. Okay.
I don't know why, but like after seeing this show, it was just
out.
like this was just
not weird that it's your dream role, but just weird that he knew that and had just done a show with us. Like just all the connections are kind of wacky because the show he had just done with us was his first show with us, and
crazy.
I had never seen him in anything. A woman Colleen, who's in the show with him, had done another show with him somewhere else and was like, this guy is interested in just so the theater world.
I'm glad you weren't getting on him for the role because you said, I can't believe that you're it's like, yes, I wanted to be Flounder in Little Mermaid. It's my dream role.
Don't judge.
Third Nun from the Left and The Sound of Music. Don't look at me like that. Yeah, it's just interesting how theater is that world where it's like, and then she did a show with him and then said he'd be great for this role and he did this one. And then I asked him and he said, well, I don't sing, but my friend who I watched a movie with in college, it's just kind of wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful to have found this theater too. You've been great to work with, and it's just been just such a great experience. Like I couldn't ask for a better cast. And
I mean, we don't pay you enough to quit your day job, so we want to make sure you have fun too, but then also make it professional. It's a fine line we walk.
Hell yeah. Well, what are you most excited about for the play?
Sorry. Yeah, I know.
What time is it?
No, I had a call.
Oh, that's funny.
Sorry, I forgot to put it on silent. Sorry about that.
He's a very important man.
Sorry, what the most excited for?
Yeah, is it not play, musical. What are you most excited about for it?
I'm just excited to get this show open and see like audience reaction to it because it's so near and dear to my heart, and it's so different and special than like any other musical out there in my opinion. It's just so crass and crude, but it's got a big heart, and the characters you just want to root for them, but they're doing horrible things. But and the music is just so great too. Yeah.
The live music.
We got a live band that's amazing.
We have a pit band. There's only 4 of them because we can't fit any more in our little backstage area. But it's Sam Peters is our music director, and I just love that man so much. And he is going to be on like keys, so he's got all the different things going on. And then we have a guitarist and bass both, and then we have a drummer, a guy named Ty Titano, who plays drums for like all over Seattle and everywhere. He does everything. Seen him at like Cafe Nordo, and he does all kinds of gigs. Cam is the guy who's on the guitar, and then a woman named Rebecca who plays strings. She plays violin, and boy, it's hard when you hand the music director a score that says, this is for a 64-piece orchestra on Broadway. And he goes, what do we have the budget for? And you go, 4, including you. And he's like, are you sure we can? It's like, 4, including you. I'm sorry, we paid for this show twice now. No, but he just picked the perfect. And then they came in and we did what's called a Sitzprobe, which is, it's German. I don't even know why. Why don't we just, whatever. It's a sing through with the the pit band for the first time, and it's always such a joy for the first time to hear. You're like, you've only had the piano in rehearsal, and then all of a sudden the violin comes in, and in this show, because it's so funny, one of the first times you hear the violin, it's actually a joke in Great Big Stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away the moment, but it's like he sings a lyric and then the violin comes in and you're like in stitches. And you're like, even the violin is hysterical on the show. And it just adds so much, and it's so beautiful. And these musicians are so professional, and they're like, great. We're sorry, we haven't practiced this yet, so we're going to stumble through it. Music. And you're just like,
sounds
okay,
beautiful.
Well, we've been rehearsing for 7 weeks and I just effed up. So thanks. Yeah. So good. But it just brings like a lushness. And, because you saw the last show, we had live musicians, and Sam was the band director.
Right. Yes. So that was, I think, three of the folks in this one were in the panto band. And honestly, that was one of my favorite things in that show was the music.
Yeah.
That was a fun one for sure.
So anyway, yeah. So it's great. And the dancing, the choreography is great. And it's a 2-story set, which is very exciting. Some of us will be on the floor and some of us will be above the floor.
And some of us should be on the second floor and lean on the rail and suddenly be on the floor.
But you can't lean on the rail too hard or you will be on the floor. Well, it takes place in the French Riviera and mostly in a hotel, in a very lavish hotel, and then in a very lavish villa. So it's kind of the set's going to have that kind of luxurious feel, and a little behind the scenes. We weren't able to get anyone to do the last kind of a scenic decor person to come in and kind of do those finishing touches, just because everyone's short-staffed with COVID. So while I'm not on stage during Tech this weekend, I'm going to be like fixing up chandeliers and like zhuzhing up palm trees and like, because that's just what you gotta do to make it work. So, like there's this big, beautiful floral display that actually plays a pivotal role in one of the scenes. And Bruce works for a company in Belfair that does home decor. And so he borrowed all the stuff for it, and he did this big beautiful floral display and brought it, so everyone's like wearing the hats to make this thing come together.
Brought that.
Yeah, he made it and brought it. He works for Jimmy Cook's business, like White Barn Decor in Belfair. I know. So we were like, yeah, we need a floral display, and he was like, sends a picture. Does this work? We're like, yep. It's larger than my children, this floral display. It's gorgeous. So yeah.
Well, I end the podcast by asking if any of you guys have any final advice or words for the audience or up-and-coming actors or influencers or creators. I'll start with you, Travis.
I would just say, come see live theater. Come back. It's
help us, please.
a lot of the groups or groups of folks in my circles have been like, "You're doing a play. When can we come see it?" Like you're doing like theater's back. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's probably my message is just let's get out there and support the arts again.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah. And I almost called you Travis, Andrew.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, I would echo what he said, because that's probably what I would have started with. But then I'm just going to also say, if you are an actor, a singer, or a dancer, get out there and do it, because again, we're back. Now it's time to reach out, find people are doing things, do your own thing if you need to, because expression is so great.
Yeah. Oh, look at both of them. I've got 3. I'll reel through them fast. First, yes, come see the show. I mean, you can buy cups with lids. You can bring your alcoholic beverage into the theater. This is a show. Have a drink. Encouraged. Have a drink and watch this show. Thank me later. I kind of wish I could do that, to be honest. But then, like Andrew said, so they did a study on the effect of COVID in the arts in people in, the staffing in the arts. And the arts has experienced a 39% loss of talent because of COVID, because people switching careers, dropping the career, moving back out of state. Because, a lot of people in the arts in Seattle weren't born in Seattle. They moved to Seattle, Tacoma area, right? So if you've ever thought you might want to get into it, or you might have a knack for it, or you have a knack for it, but now is the time, even if it's just as a hobby or you're trying to explore, especially my Black, my Latin, my Asian artists, my, Islander, Native American, like the socioeconomics, the way they play out, not to be a downer, but we know it sucks, but we also know that the people who are given the short end of the stick to begin with are always the first ones knocked out of the race when it comes to things that privileged things, and the arts is a privileged thing. And so we're really hurting for that. And you saw the panto and you saw the diversity on the stage, and that's my jam. So I want it. And, actors, disabilities, all body types, all genders, spectrum, everything. if you've ever thought you might want to get into theater, now is the time to do it. And I know they'll be able to find our contact information, when they see this. Get in touch with me. I have people email me out of the blue all the time, like I sing. I don't know if I have a knack for acting. How can I'm like, this is how you can get involved. Get to know us, come in, and then I reel them in, and I am very persistent in getting people involved. So if you've ever thought of doing it, now is the time. And then my piece of advice for people who are already in the arts and who want to do it is you can be a working artist in the Seattle Tacoma area. However, you have got to be willing and able to wear multiple hats. And Blake, I know you know this.
Yeah.
You just started DJing as well, which is so amazing.
Yeah.
Find the different things. My degree is in musical theater performance, but I was forced by life circumstance to take a break from performing for 7 years. So I produced, I directed, I wrote. I'm not even good at writing. It doesn't matter. Just do it.
Don't you dare.
No, I'm really not. No.
You would now. I'm going to interject. She adapted a book
Okay. I had
into
help.
a play, yes, with Josh, and it was wonderful.
Okay, well,
and I
thank you.
hope you turn it into.
Thank
the
you.
final.
I had help. Joshua Gerard, who was in the last one with us, he helped me, and he's very, but, wear the different hats. Find the other things you're good at. Find I have people all the time, hey, I'm an actor, but I want to learn choreography, and I will plug them in with people and things. And if you're willing to wear those hats, I graduated from college years ago. And since graduating, I have, with one exception of 3 months, worked in arts and arts adjacent since graduating college, never in anything else.
Wow.
And that's a big deal. But it's because I've done lots of different things, right? I thought I was going to graduate, work on a cruise ship, then do a national tour but the life I have is great. So that's my advice to working artists. The ones who come to me and say, well, I just, I want to be in the arts. I want to be an actor, or I want to be a director. And I say, well, what else do you? And they go, oh, no. I only direct. I'm like, yeah, you're not.
That time's over.
Yeah,
You can't do that
you can't.
anymore.
You cannot do that. And you cannot do that in Seattle because there's a vast ecosystem, but the top of it where you can quit your other jobs and just do the one is narrow. It is tiny, tiny, tiny. So yeah, maybe you'll make it, kid, and maybe you'll be one out of 1,500 people that do. But also, like I was just saying, we're all wearing different hats, to make this show come together, and that is very valuable to a theater. So yeah, wear the different hats, and you can if you've got the talent and the drive, and you're willing to keep training. I think you can make it in Seattle. Obviously, that's not unilateral. You have to have the right things in the right places, but be willing to learn those different skills and, get in touch with people like me because I like to help actors.
Mhm.
Hell yeah. It's been the NAST podcast with
Travis.
and
Andrew.
and
Trista.
and we did it.